At his wedding, my son screamed, "Get out! She doesn't want you here!" I walked out silently, tears streaming. The next day, "Mom, give me the mansion keys, we're honeymooning there." I gave him the keys with a smile. When they turned on the TV in the master bedroom, there was a nice video of his bride playing on every channel. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I'm Dorothy Walsh, 67 years old, and apparently the most unwelcome mother-in-law in Connecticut. But let me backtrack to how I got my perfect revenge on the woman who stole my son and the son who betrayed me. The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I'd spent 3 months helping plan every detail, from the flowers to the catering menu. I'd even bought a beautiful navy dress that complemented Sophia's color scheme. Everything was perfect until the moment I walked into the reception hall. "What is she doing here?" Sophia's voice cut through the chatter like a knife. She stood there in her $5,000 dress, pointing at me like I was some unwanted party crasher. My son Michael, the boy I'd raised alone after his father died, just stood there frozen. "I invited her," Michael said weakly. "She's my mother." "Your mother?" Sophia's laugh was sharp and cold. "The woman who tried to sabotage our engagement? The woman who called me a gold digger at the rehearsal dinner?" I never called her that, though I certainly thought it. What I actually said was that I hoped they'd discuss their financial expectations for marriage. Apparently, that counted as sabotage in Sophia's world. "Get out!" Michael suddenly exploded, his face red with champagne and anger. "She doesn't want you here. And honestly, neither do I. This is supposed to be our day, not another one of your guilt trips." The entire reception hall went silent. 200 guests stared at me as tears rolled down my cheeks. My own son, the boy I'd worked 3 jobs to put through college, was throwing me out of his wedding like yesterday's garbage. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I simply picked up my purse, walked to the door, and left. But as I sat in my car in the parking lot, watching through the windows as the party continued without me, something hard and cold settled in my chest. If they wanted to treat me like the enemy, maybe it was time I started acting like one. The next morning, Michael called. His voice was different now, sweet and apologetic, the way it got when he wanted something. "Mom, I'm sorry about last night. Sophia was just stressed, and I overreacted. You know how weddings are." "Of course." "Sweetheart," I said, though my heart was still broken, "these things happen. Actually, we have a favor to ask. Could we borrow the keys to the mansion in the Hamptons? We want to honeymoon there instead of going to Italy." The travel costs got a bit higher than expected. The mansion, my late husband's family estate, worth about $4 million, which Michael thought he'd inherit someday. The same property where I'd spent my happiest years before Robert died. The same property where I'd installed a very sophisticated security system 6 months ago. "Of course, darling," I said, sweetness dripping from my voice. "I'll have the keys ready for you this afternoon." When Michael arrived with Sophia to pick up the keys, I couldn't help but notice how she avoided eye contact with me. Good. She should feel ashamed of herself. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Walsh," she said, in that fake, sweet voice she used when she wanted something. "This means the world to us." "Oh, call me Dorothy," I said, handing over the keys with a bright smile. "After all, we're family now." They drove off in Michael's BMW, laughing and planning their romantic getaway. I watched them go, then went inside to check my laptop. The security system I'd installed wasn't just for burglary protection. It included cameras in every room and the ability to override the entertainment system remotely. I opened the control panel and started uploading a very special video to the mansion's media server. A video I'd been saving for exactly the right moment. A video that was about to turn their honeymoon into a nightmare they'd never forget. Because 3 months ago, I'd learned the truth about my sweet daughter-in-law. And now, it was time she learned what happens when you mess with Dorothy Walsh. Let me tell you how I discovered what kind of woman my son really married. It started with a phone call that changed everything. "Mrs. Walsh, this is Detective James Morrison with the Hartford Police Department. We're investigating a fraud case, and your son's fiancé's name came up. Could we speak with you?" My blood ran cold. This was 2 weeks before the wedding, and I was in the middle of addressing invitation envelopes when the call came. "What kind of fraud?" I managed to ask. "Credit card fraud, identity theft, some other charges. We believe she may have used false information to obtain credit under her previous name. The name Sophia Chen is relatively new." Sophia Chen. Her name wasn't even real. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair, my mind racing. Who had my son agreed to marry? What was her previous name? I asked. Sarah Martinez. She's been Sarah Martinez for the past 8 years, until she legally changed her name 18 months ago. Right around the time she met your son, actually. 18 months ago. Exactly when she'd shown up at the country club where Michael played tennis, claiming to be new in town and looking for tennis lessons. What a convenient coincidence. Detective Morrison, what exactly are you investigating? She ran up about $75,000 in credit card debt under her previous identity, then disappeared. Changed her name, changed her entire identity. Her victims were mostly older men she met through dating apps. She'd gain their trust, get access to their financial information, then max out credit cards before vanishing. I felt sick. My son, my trusting, naive son, was about to marry a con artist. Have you spoken to my son about this? We tried, ma'am. He refused to listen. Said we were wrong about her, that she'd told him about her name change already, said it was because of an abusive ex-husband. Of course she'd have a sob story ready. That was probably how she'd hooked Michael in the first place. My son always was a sucker for a damsel in distress. What can I do to help? I asked. Honestly, not much legally. She hasn't technically committed any crimes as Sophia Chen, but we thought the family should know what they're dealing with. After the detective hung up, I sat staring at the wedding invitations scattered across my table. 200 people were about to watch my son marry a criminal. But how could I stop it? Michael was completely under her spell, and as he'd made clear repeatedly, he thought I was just a jealous mother trying to interfere. That's when I decided to do some investigating of my own. If the police couldn't prove anything, maybe I could find evidence they'd missed. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Carmen Rodriguez, who specialized in background checks. Within a week, she'd uncovered more than the police had. Your future daughter-in-law is quite interesting, Carmen said, spreading photos and documents across my coffee table. Sarah Martinez was married twice before, both times to wealthy older men. Both marriages ended in divorce, with her getting substantial settlements. I studied the photographs. There was Sophia, but younger, with different hair, laughing at charity galas with men old enough to be her grandfather. This one, Carmen pointed to a photo of Sophia, with a silver-haired man in a tuxedo, was Marcus Freeman, a real estate developer in Florida. They were married for 18 months. He died of a heart attack 6 months after their divorce was finalized. That's suspicious. It gets better. The autopsy showed elevated levels of digitalis in his system. Not enough to be lethal, but enough to cause the kind of heart stress that might trigger an attack in someone with pre-existing conditions. My hands started shaking. Are you saying she murdered him? I'm saying the timing was very convenient. She got a $2.3 million settlement from the divorce, then inherited another $800,000 when he died. No charges were ever filed, but the family was suspicious enough to request the autopsy. Carmen pulled out another file. Then there's husband number 2, David Park, a tech executive in California. Same pattern. Whirlwind romance, quick marriage, mysterious health problems, expensive divorce, then a convenient accident. What kind of accident? Fell down the stairs in his home, broke his neck. Again, no charges filed, but the insurance company fought the payout for 2 years. I felt like I was going to be sick. This woman, this predator, had somehow gotten her claws into my son, and there was more. The really interesting part, Carmen continued, is what happened in between marriages. She'd take breaks, completely disappear for 6 months to a year, then resurface with a new identity, new story, new hunting ground. And now she's hunting my son. It appears so. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I thought about that for a long time. I could show Michael the evidence, but he'd already made it clear he wouldn't listen. I could go to the police again, but they'd already said there wasn't enough for charges. Or I could wait and watch, and hope she revealed herself before it was too late. That's when Carmen showed me the final piece of the puzzle. There's one more thing you should see, she said, pulling out her laptop. I managed to hack into Sarah's old iCloud account, the one she thought she'd deleted. She's not as tech-savvy as she thinks. The video started playing, and my jaw dropped. There was Sophia, or Sarah, or whatever her real name was, but she wasn't alone, and she definitely wasn't the innocent victim she pretended to be. When was this filmed? I asked. Based on the metadata, about 6 months ago, right around the time she got engaged to your son. I stared at the screen, watching my future daughter-in-law in a very compromising position, with a man who definitely wasn't Michael. The audio was crystal clear, including the part where she laughed about her naive fiancé and how easy it would be to clean him out. Can you make me a copy of this? I asked. Carmen nodded. What are you planning to do? I smiled for the first time in weeks. I'm going to save my son, even if he hates me for it. The next 2 weeks before the wedding were the longest of my life. Every day I watched Michael get more excited about his future with Sophia, and every day I knew more about what she really was. I tried one more time to talk to him, 3 days before the ceremony. Michael, sweetheart, are you absolutely sure about this marriage? Have you and Sophia discussed your long-term financial goals? He rolled his eyes. Mom, not this again. Yes, we've talked about money. Yes, I know you think she's after the family money, but you're wrong about her. What exactly has she told you about her past? She was married before to an abusive man. She had to change her name to escape him. She's been hurt before, which is why she's cautious about trust. But she loves me, Mom, really loves me. The lies came so easily to her, and he believed every word. And you've met her family? She doesn't have family. Her parents died in a car accident when she was young. She was raised by an aunt who's now in a nursing home with dementia. It's actually really sad. Another lie. According to Carmen's investigation, Sophia's parents were alive and well and living in Phoenix. They'd tried to warn her previous husbands about their daughter's history, but by then it was always too late. Michael, what if I told you I had proof that she's not who she says she is? His face hardened. I'd say you need to stop trying to destroy my happiness. I know you're lonely since Dad died, but that doesn't give you the right to sabotage my marriage. That hurt more than anything Sophia had done to me. My own son thought I was so pathetic, so desperate for attention, that I'd lie to keep him single. I would never lie to you about something this important. Really? Then where's this proof? I hesitated. Showing him the video would destroy him, and there was no guarantee he'd believe it wasn't somehow faked. Sophia had done an excellent job of painting me as an unstable, jealous mother. Anything I showed him would be dismissed as another attempt to break them up. I thought so, he said when I didn't answer. Mom, I love you, but you need to accept that I'm getting married. Sophia is going to be your daughter-in-law, and if you can't be civil to her, then maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding. That was the moment I knew there was no saving him before the marriage. He'd have to learn the truth the hard way, but that didn't mean I couldn't be prepared for when reality hit. The wedding planning continued around me like a nightmare. Sophia made a big show of asking for my opinion on flowers and music, but it was clear she was just humoring me. Michael had obviously told her about our conversation, because she started being extra sweet, as if she was proving how wrong I was about her. Dorothy, you have such good taste, she'd coo, showing me fabric sample. Michael is so lucky to have such a devoted mother, but I caught the look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't watching. Cold calculation, like she was measuring me for a coffin. 2 days before the wedding, she made her biggest mistake yet. She asked to meet me for lunch, just the two of us. I know this transition is hard for you, she said over salads at the country club. Michael means everything to you, and now you have to share him. That's what mothers do, I replied carefully. We want our children to be happy. Of course, and I want you to know that I would never try to come between you and Michael. Family is so important. She said this while wearing a bracelet that cost more than most people's cars, paid for with my son's credit card. That's good to hear. Although, she continued, her voice getting softer, more conspiratorial, I hope you understand that as Michael's wife, I'll need to be his primary confidant, especially about financial matters. It wouldn't be appropriate for him to discuss our private business with anyone else, even family. There it was, the opening move to cut me out of Michael's life completely. I wouldn't expect him to share personal information, I said. Wonderful, because I'd hate for there to be any confusion about boundaries. Michael needs to feel like he can be completely honest with me, without worrying about judgment from others. She was already planning to isolate him, to make sure no one could warn him when she started draining his accounts. Sophia, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you love my son? Her smile never wavered, but something flickered in her eyes. What a strange question. Of course I love him. Why would you ask that? Because loving someone means wanting what's best for them, even when it's not what's best for you. And I wonder if you've ever loved anyone that way. Now the mask slipped, just for a second. I saw the real Sophia, cold and calculating and completely without empathy. I think, she said slowly, that you don't know me as well as you think you do. You're absolutely right, I replied. I don't know Sarah Martinez at all. The effect was electric. Her face went completely white, then flushed red. For a moment, I thought she might actually lose control. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Just like you don't know Marcus Freeman or David Park. She stood up so quickly her chair fell over. This lunch is over. Sit down. Sophia, or Sarah, whichever name you prefer. She sat, but her hands were shaking now. Here's what's going to happen, I continued calmly. You're going to marry my son because stopping you now would hurt him more than letting you go through with it. But I want you to know that I know exactly what you are. And the second you hurt him, I will destroy you. You can't prove anything, can't I? I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot from the video Carmen had found. Not the worst part, just enough to let her know what I had. The color drained from her face completely. That's impossible. I deleted everything. Technology is amazing these days, isn't it? Delete doesn't always mean gone forever. She stared at the phone, then at me. What do you want? I want you to be a good wife to my son. I want you to love him and take care of him and never give me a reason to share what I know about your past. And if I don't, I smiled and put my phone away. Then you'll find out what happens when you underestimate a mother protecting her child. She left without another word, and I sat there finishing my salad, feeling better than I had in weeks. At least now she knew I wasn't the helpless old woman she'd thought I was. But I should have known that threatening a predator would only make her more dangerous. The honeymoon was supposed to last a week. They came back after 2 days, and Michael looked like he'd seen a ghost. They showed up at my house on Tuesday morning, Sophia's face red and puffy from crying, Michael pale and shaking. I opened the door with my warmest smile. Hello, darlings. You're back early. How was the mansion? You know damn well how it was, Michael said, pushing past me into the living room. Sophia wouldn't even look at me. She stood in my foyer like she was afraid to come any closer, which was probably smart of her. I'm afraid I don't understand, I said innocently. Did something happen? The video. Mom. The video that somehow got uploaded to every television in the house. The video that started playing the moment we turned on any screen. I gasped dramatically. Oh my goodness. Was there a virus in the system? How terrible. Cut the act, Michael snapped. You did this. Somehow you did this. Michael. Honey, I don't know anything about uploading videos. You know I can barely work my email. But I'd practiced that speech. Carmen had taught me exactly what to do with the mansion's smart home system. It was remarkably easy once you knew what you were doing. It was her, Sophia finally spoke, her voice hoarse. She threatened me at lunch. She knows things about my past, things that aren't true, and she's trying to destroy our marriage. What things? Michael asked, looking between us. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Time to let them destroy each other. Sophia, if you have something to tell Michael about your past, now would be a good time. I said gently. It's all lies, she said desperately. She hired someone to make fake documents, fake videos, fake everything. She can't stand that you chose me over her. Michael looked confused. What fake documents? What videos? I walked to my desk and pulled out the folder Carmen had given me. Perhaps these will clear things up. I handed him the file with copies of her marriage certificates, divorce documents, police reports, and the newspaper articles about her previous husband's deaths. Michael's hands shook as he read through everything. Sophia, what is this? Why does this say your name is Sarah Martinez? I can explain. And why are there 2 marriage certificates with your picture on them? Michael, please, let me... And what's this about a David Park dying in a fall down the stairs? Sophia, who are these people? She was crying harder now, makeup streaming down her face. I was going to tell you everything after we were married. I was scared you wouldn't understand. Understand what? That you've been married twice before? That 2 men died after divorcing you? That your real name is Sarah? It's not what it looks like. Then explain it, he said, his voice getting louder. Explain why my mother has newspaper clippings about you being investigated for insurance fraud. Explain why there's a police report here about credit card theft. I sat down in my armchair and watched my daughter-in-law's world collapse. It was even more satisfying than I'd imagined. The name change was because of an abusive ex-husband, she said desperately. I told you that. And yes, I was married before, but those men, they weren't good people. They tried to control me, to hurt me. By giving you millions of dollars in divorce settlements? Michael's voice was ice cold now. I never asked for that money. They forced it on me because they felt guilty about how they treated me. And then they both just happened to die in accidents? I didn't have anything to do with that. Michael looked at me. Mom, where did you get all this? I hired a private investigator after Detective Morrison called me about the fraud case. What fraud case? I explained about the phone call, about the credit card debt she'd run up under her previous name, about the pattern of targeting older men through dating apps. But she didn't meet me through a dating app, Michael said slowly. She met me at the tennis club. Actually, I said gently, according to the investigator, she joined that tennis club 3 days before meeting you. right after she researched your family and found out about your father's estate. Michael sank into my couch like all the air had gone out of him. You researched my family? Michael, please, I love you. I really love you. Everything else was in the past before I met you. You changed me. The same way Marcus Freeman changed you? The same way David Park changed you? This is different, is it? Because according to this police report, you told David Park the exact same thing, that he'd changed you, that you'd never felt love like this before, that your past didn't matter because you were different with him. I hadn't mentioned that detail to Michael. He'd figured it out himself by reading the investigator's notes. My son was smarter than I'd given him credit for. Michael, I know this looks bad, but looks bad? He stood up, pacing around my living room like a caged animal. Sophia, or Sarah, or whoever you are, I just watched a video of you having sex with another man while talking about how easy it would be to rob me blind. How exactly is that supposed to look good? She went completely silent. The crying stopped. The desperate explanations stopped. Everything stopped. When she finally looked up at him, I saw the real woman behind the mask for the first time. You want to know the truth? She said, her voice completely different now. Colder, harder. Fine. Here's the truth. Yes, I researched your family. Yes, I joined that tennis club to meet you. Yes, I lied about my past. But so what? You got exactly what you wanted out of this marriage. What I wanted? A beautiful young wife who made you look successful. Someone to show off at your country club. Someone to make your friends jealous. You think I didn't know you were just trying to prove something to your dead father? Michael's face went white. That's not true. Really? Then why did you propose after 2 months? Why did you insist on having the wedding at the country club where all his old friends could see? Why did you tell everyone about how I was different from other women because I wasn't interested in your money? I had to admit, she had him there. Michael had always been insecure about living up to his father's legacy. You used me, he said quietly. We used each other, she corrected. The only difference is I'm honest about it. Did you ever love me at all? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I loved the life you could give me. I loved the security, the status, the future we could have had. But love you? Michael, I don't think I'm capable of loving anyone the way you mean. That was the moment my son's heart truly broke. Not when he saw the video, not when he read the police reports, but when she admitted she'd never loved him at all. I want you out of my house, he said quietly. It's not your house yet, she replied. Technically, it's still your mother's house until you inherit it. Which, given what I know about the prenup you didn't make me sign, might be sooner than you think. The threat was unmistakable. She was going to try to take everything in the divorce. Michael looked at me helplessly. Mom, what do I do? For the first time in months, my son was asking for my help instead of rejecting it. First, I said, you call your lawyer. Then you call the bank and freeze any joint accounts. Then you change all your passwords and make sure she can't access anything financial. You can't prove any of this, Sophia said. But there was no confidence in her voice anymore. Actually, I replied, I can prove all of it. Carmen was very thorough in her investigation, and video evidence is particularly compelling in divorce court. The look she gave me could have frozen hell. This isn't over, she said. Yes, I said calmly. It is. She left without another word, and Michael collapsed back onto my couch. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. You couldn't have known, sweetheart. She was very good at what she did. How did you know to investigate her? I sat down next to him and took his hand. Because no mother watches her son fall for someone and doesn't ask questions. And when the police called, I knew I had to protect you. The police called you first? They tried to call you, but you wouldn't listen. So they called me instead. Michael was quiet for a long moment. She's going to try to take everything in the divorce, isn't she? She's going to try, but she's going to find out that Dorothy Walsh didn't raise a stupid son. And she definitely didn't raise one who goes into battle without backup. What do you mean? I smiled and pulled out another folder, this one much thicker than the first. I mean, your father taught me a thing or two about protecting family assets. And Carmen found some very interesting information about how Sarah Martinez's previous divorces were overturned when evidence of fraud came to light. Michael stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Mom, you're kind of scary when you want to be. Sweetheart, I said, patting his hand. You have no idea. The divorce proceedings started exactly as I'd predicted. Sophia, or Sarah, hired the most expensive lawyer in the state and immediately filed for half of everything Michael owned, plus alimony, plus damages for emotional distress. Her lawyer, a shark named Hamilton Pierce, actually had the nerve to call me. Mrs. Walsh, I represent your daughter-in-law in the divorce proceedings. I understand you've been spreading some rather serious allegations about my client. I haven't been spreading anything, I said pleasantly. I simply provided my son with factual information about the woman he married. Factual information that was obtained through illegal means. Hacking into private accounts, hiring investigators to stalk my client, invasion of privacy. My client has grounds for a substantial lawsuit against you personally. I almost laughed. Mr. Pierce, I think you should speak with your client about her previous legal troubles before you threaten me with lawsuits. Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to be very clear with you. My client is entitled to half of your son's assets, and that includes his inheritance from your husband. If you interfere with these proceedings, I will make sure you lose your home and everything else you own. How interesting. Does your client happen to mention that she's not actually entitled to any inheritance because it's held in a trust that specifically excludes spouses married for less than 2 years? There was a long pause. What trust? The one my husband established when Michael was 16. The one that protects family assets from exactly this kind of situation. I'm surprised Sarah didn't research that when she was researching everything else about our family. Another pause. I'll need to see documentation of this trust. Of course, my lawyer will provide copies during discovery, along with all the documentation about Sarah's previous marriages and the civil suits filed against her by the families of her deceased ex-husbands. Pierce hung up without another word. 2 days later, Sarah showed up at my house again. This time she was alone, and she looked desperate. We need to talk, she said when I opened the door. I don't think we have anything to discuss. Please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She stood in my living room looking around like she was calculating the value of everything she could see. You've won, she said finally. Is that what you want to hear? You've successfully destroyed my marriage and my life. Congratulations. I didn't destroy anything, Sarah. I simply revealed what was already there. You know Michael will never trust another woman again because of this. You've made sure he'll be alone for the rest of his life, dependent on you. That stung because there was some truth to it. Michael had been devastated by the betrayal, and he'd been clinging to me like a lifeline ever since. Michael will heal, I said, and eventually he'll find someone who actually loves him. Will he? Because right now he's drinking himself to sleep every night and calling me at 2 a.m., begging me to explain why I did this to him. I hadn't known about the calls or the drinking. What do you want, Sarah? I want you to give me something, some kind of severance payment, enough money to start over somewhere else. In exchange, I'll disappear completely. No drawn-out divorce, no custody battle over assets, no lawsuits. I'll sign whatever papers your lawyers want and vanish. How much money? $2 million. I actually did laugh then. You must be joking. I know about Marcus Freeman's family suing me. I know about the insurance companies investigating David Park's death. If this divorce gets nasty, if it goes to trial, all of that will come out. The media will have a field day. Michael's name will be associated with mine in every news story about Black widow wives. She was right about that. A sensational trial would destroy Michael's reputation, along with hers. And if I pay you $2 million, you'll just disappear? I'll move to a different country, change my name again, start over. Michael can get a quiet divorce for irreconcilable differences, and his name stays out of the papers. I pretended to consider it. That's quite an offer. But I have a counterproposal. What? Nothing. You get nothing. You sign the divorce papers accepting full responsibility for the breakdown of the marriage, you waive any claim to assets or alimony, and you disappear anyway. Why would I agree to that? I walked to my desk and pulled out yet another folder. Sarah's face went pale when she saw it, because Carmen's investigation turned up something very interesting about David Park's death. The insurance company wasn't the only one asking questions. His family hired their own investigator, and that investigator found some fascinating evidence. What evidence? Security camera footage from a neighbor's house showing you leaving David's home at 11:47 p.m. The night he died. Footage that clearly shows you coming back at 1:23 a.m., staying for exactly 4 minutes, then leaving again. Sarah sat down hard in my armchair. That's impossible. The timestamp is very clear. David's body was found at the bottom of the stairs the next morning, but according to the coroner, he died between midnight and 2 a.m., which means you were there right around the time he died. I went back because I forgot my purse. For 4 minutes? And you didn't think to mention this to the police at the time? She was trapped and she knew it. The security footage wouldn't be enough to convict her of murder, but it would be enough to reopen the investigation. And if they reopened David Park's case, they'd probably take another look at Marcus Freeman's death too. "What do you want me to do?" she whispered. "I want you to sign a confession." "A confession to what?" "To fraud. To knowingly entering into marriage under false pretenses with the intent to defraud my son of his assets. Nothing about the deaths, nothing about the previous marriages, just a simple admission that you lied about your identity and your motives. If I sign that, I could go to jail. Maybe. Or maybe the district attorney will be satisfied with restitution and community service, especially if you cooperate fully and leave the state voluntarily." She stared at the floor for a long time. "And if I don't sign it, then I give this security footage to the Hartford police, along with all the other evidence Carmen found. And we'll see how well your new lawyer handles a murder investigation on top of a divorce case." The silence stretched between us for several minutes. Finally, she looked up at me with something that might have been respect. "You really are a scary old woman. I'm a mother protecting her child. That makes me the most dangerous thing in the world." She signed the confession that afternoon. Within a week, she'd filed for divorce on no-fault grounds, waiving all claims to Michael's assets. Within a month, she'd left Connecticut entirely. Michael never knew about the confession or the security footage. As far as he knew, Sophia had just decided to leave quietly rather than fight a losing battle. He was hurt and angry and confused, but he was safe. The drinking stopped after a few weeks. The late-night phone calls ended when her number was disconnected. Slowly, very slowly, my son started to heal. "Mom," he said one afternoon, about 2 months after she'd left, "I owe you an apology. A big one." "You don't owe me anything, sweetheart." "Yes, I do. I chose her over you. I accused you of being jealous and controlling when you were just trying to protect me. I threw you out of my own wedding. You were in love. People do stupid things when they're in love. I hurt you, really hurt you, and you saved me anyway." I thought about that night in the mansion, watching Sarah's face when she realized I'd trapped her completely. I thought about the look in her eyes when she signed that confession, knowing she'd finally met someone more ruthless than she was. "That's what mothers do," I said. "We protect our children, even when they don't want to be protected." "How did you know she was lying about everything, even before the detective called?" I smiled, remembering the first time I'd met her at that tennis club lunch. Instinct, mostly. Something about her just felt wrong. She was too perfect, too eager to please, too interested in all the wrong things. "What wrong things?" "She asked about your father's estate before she asked about your favorite color. She knew your net worth before she knew your middle name. When someone loves you, they want to know who you are. When someone's using you, they want to know what you're worth." Michael nodded slowly. "I should have seen it." "No, sweetheart. You should have been able to trust that the woman you married actually loved you. The fact that you couldn't see through her lies just means you're a good person who expects the best from people. Like Dad was. Exactly like Dad. And that's not something to be ashamed of." We sat quietly for a while, watching the sun set through my kitchen window. Finally, Michael spoke again. "Mom, how do I make sure this never happens again? How do I trust anyone after this?" "Carefully," I said, "but you will trust again, eventually. Because the alternative is spending your life alone, and that's exactly what she wanted. She wanted to poison you against love so completely that you'd never risk your heart again. Maybe that would be safer. Safer, yes, but not happier. And your father didn't raise you to choose safe over happy." Michael smiled for the first time in months. "No, he didn't. Besides," I added, "next time you'll have the advantage of a very paranoid mother who knows exactly how to run a background check." He laughed, and the sound filled my heart with relief. My son was going to be okay. It would take time, but he was going to be okay. And if anyone else ever tried to hurt him, well, they'd find out what I'd learned about myself during this whole ordeal. There's nothing more dangerous than a mother who's discovered she's capable of anything. 6 months later, Michael started dating again. Her name was Jennifer. She was a pediatric nurse, and the first thing she did when she met me was show me pictures of her family. "This is my mom and dad at their 40th anniversary party," she said, scrolling through her phone. "And this is my sister with her kids. And here's my brother at his graduation from medical school." Real family, real history, real life that could be verified by anyone who cared to look. "She seems lovely," I told Michael later. "She is. And Mom? I had Carmen run a background check on her." I smiled. "And?" "Jennifer Marie Thompson, 29 years old, born in Boston, graduated from nursing school with honors, no previous marriages, no criminal record, and her biggest debt is her student loans." "Suspicious," I said dryly. "She sounds entirely too normal." "I know, right? It's weird dating someone who's actually honest about everything." 3 months later, Michael brought Jennifer to Sunday dinner for the first time. She arrived with a bouquet of flowers for me and a homemade apple pie. "I hope this is okay," she said nervously. "Michael mentioned you like to bake, and I didn't want to assume I could compete with your recipes, but my grandmother's apple pie was always her specialty." I took a bite and nearly moaned with pleasure. "Jennifer, this is absolutely delicious. Would you share the recipe?" "Of course. Actually, I was hoping you might teach me some of your techniques. Michael raves about your cooking." After dinner, while Michael was loading the dishwasher, Jennifer helped me package up leftovers in the kitchen. "Mrs. Walsh, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, dear." Michael told me about his first marriage. Not all the details, but enough. "I just want you to know that I understand why you might be protective of him." I studied her face, looking for any sign of calculation or manipulation. I found only genuine concern. "I appreciate that, Jennifer. I also want you to know that I don't expect you to trust me right away. I know I have to earn that, but I hope eventually you'll see that I really do love your son." "What makes you love him?" I asked. She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that transformed her whole face. "He's kind without being weak. He's successful without being arrogant. He treats waiters and janitors the same way he treats his boss, and when he talks about you, his whole face lights up. Any man who loves his mother that much is someone I want to know better." That night, after they'd left, I called Carmen. "I need another favor," I said. "Let me guess. Jennifer Thompson? You already ran a check on her, didn't you?" "Of course I did. The moment Michael started dating her seriously. She's exactly what she appears to be, Dorothy. A nice woman from a nice family who happens to love your son. No hidden marriages. No mysterious deaths of ex-boyfriends?" Carmen laughed. Her longest relationship before Michael was with a guy named Steve who broke up with her because she wanted kids, and he didn't. He's now happily married to someone else and speaks very highly of her. Her biggest scandal is a parking ticket she got in college, so she's perfect. She's normal, which probably seems perfect after what Michael went through. I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. My son had found someone who loved him for himself, not for what he could give her. A year later, Michael proposed to Jennifer in my backyard garden, right next to the rose bushes his father had planted. She said yes through happy tears, and the first thing she did after putting on the ring was hug me. "I hope this means I get to call you Mom," she whispered. "I'd be honored," I whispered back. The wedding was small and intimate, held in the same garden where they'd gotten engaged. Jennifer's family flew in from Boston, and they were exactly as warm and genuine as she was. Her father walked her down the aisle, but he stopped to shake my hand before giving her away. "Thank you for raising such a wonderful man," he said. "We couldn't be happier about this marriage." This time, I sat in the front row with tears of joy streaming down my face. This time, no one screamed at me to leave. This time, I watched my son marry someone who actually deserved him. During his speech at the reception, Michael looked directly at me. "I want to thank my mother for never giving up on me, even when I was too stupid to listen to her wisdom. Mom, you saved my life in more ways than one, and I love you more than I can ever express." Jennifer's maid of honor speech was even better. "I've never seen a mother and son who love each other as purely as Michael and Dorothy," she said. "Dorothy didn't just raise a son. She raised a man who knows how to love without conditions, how to trust without being naive, and how to protect the people he cares about. Any woman lucky enough to marry into this family knows she's getting not just a husband, but a role model for what unconditional love looks like." That night, as I watched my son and his new wife dance to their wedding song, I thought about Sarah Martinez. Wherever she was, I hoped she'd found whatever it was she was really looking for, and I hoped it didn't involve destroying anyone else's life. But mostly, I thought about the lesson I'd learned through this whole ordeal. Sometimes protecting the people you love means being willing to become someone you never thought you could be. Sometimes love requires you to be ruthless, calculating, and absolutely unforgiving. I'd always thought of myself as a gentle person, someone who avoided conflict and trusted others to do the right thing. But when my son's happiness was threatened, I'd discovered I was capable of things that would have shocked the old Dorothy Walsh. I'd hired investigators, manipulated security systems, obtained evidence through questionable means, and ultimately forced a confession through what was essentially blackmail. A year ago, I would have been horrified by those actions. Now, watching Michael and Jennifer laugh together at their head table, I felt nothing but satisfaction. I'd done what was necessary to protect my child, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. The next morning, Jennifer brought me coffee in bed and thanked me for the most beautiful wedding she could have imagined. "Dorothy, I hope you know that I consider myself the luckiest woman in the world. Not just because I married Michael, but because I married into a family where love means everything. Welcome to the family, sweetheart, I said, hugging her tight. And thank you for making my son so happy. As she headed downstairs to make breakfast for her new husband, I sat in bed thinking about how much my life had changed. A year and a half ago, I'd been a naive widow who trusted everyone and assumed the best about people. I'd learned the hard way that the world contained predators who viewed kindness as weakness and love as opportunity. But I'd also learned that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. When pushed to my limits, I could be every bit as cunning and ruthless as any con artist. The difference was that I used those skills to protect instead of exploit, to defend instead of attack. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I saw the wedding announcement in the paper. Congratulations to Michael and his new wife. I hope they'll be very happy together. S. Sarah Martinez, checking in from whatever new life she'd built for herself. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some chapters of life are meant to stay closed. I got up, put on my robe, and went downstairs to join my son and daughter-in-law for breakfast. My real family, the one built on truth and love and mutual respect. Good morning, Mom, Michael said, kissing my cheek. Sleep well? Perfectly, I said, and meant it. After everything we'd been through, everything I'd had to do to protect him, this was what mattered. My son was safe, happy, and loved by someone who deserved him. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes the best revenge is simply ensuring that good people get the happy endings they deserve. And sometimes being a good mother means being willing to be the villain in someone else's story. I poured myself coffee and sat down with my family, finally at peace with both the woman I'd been and the woman I'd had to become. If you're watching this story, I want you to remember something. Never underestimate a mother protecting her child. We're capable of anything when the people we love are threatened. And to any predators out there thinking you can target someone's family, think again, because somewhere out there is a mother like me, and we're always watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.